Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome to this week's Q&A. As always, I checked all of the different support platforms, and it looks like just questions on Patreon this time, so I'll head over there. But without being annoying, I just want to give everybody a reminder that anybody that's a supporter is eligible to ask the questions. Please don't think it's only Patreon. I genuinely don't care where anybody supports from. I'm just very, very grateful that you do. So thank you very much, and let's jump right in. All right, I'll start with the newest comment first this week. Conrad Klaus asked how we could buy retro RGB t-shirts. If so, how can we buy some to support what you do? Thank you very much for asking. I think the easiest link is just retrorgb.com/store.html, or if you go to the site, in the drop-down menu, you'll see store, and that has links to the Teespring store, as well as an eBay store, but I don't ever sell anything. I think I've taken the stance in the past few years of if I continued to sell parts, then it would be a conflict of interest, because what if somebody comes out with a better thing? You know, I'm not going to lie and say that the ones that I already have are better, but I also don't want to keep stock of like 1,000 of something just to have somebody else come out and do it better. So I don't sell anything, but from time to time I do have stuff where it's like I bought 10 of something for a video or a project or research, and I don't need all 10, so I'll just throw some up there. I think I have my old camera up there now, so the exact one I used to use to shoot this, just without the lens. So if anybody wants to support or just get some of the t-shirts, because Wes from Second Opinion Games designed those, and I really enjoy them. I try to wear them now on every single video that's well, definitely on every of the more professional videos, and at least the weekly Q&A, or weekly roundup as well, just to help promote them, because I really like them. But yeah, just retrorgb.com/store.html, and that brings you right to the Teespring store, and shows the link to the eBay page, should you want any of the junk that I'm getting rid of at that time. But thank you for asking. Chris Symes said that he used the MCable with the GameCube HD Mark II, and it made the Game Boy interface Ultra Low Latency Edition work on his monitor. So that's a really great thing to report, and that's something that, if you happen to catch the Retro Roundtable last night, Zach asked, and I had completely forgotten to test, does the MCable increase compatibility of things? So for people that actually like the thing that it does, likes the filter that it puts on it and the anti-aliasing, will it make your OSSC more compatible with your TV? And I think for me personally, the best test I could provide is an old Panasonic GT25 Plasma. That I loved that TV, but the OSSC was only compatible in 2X mode. So I still have the MCable with me. I'm going to be heading over to Cousin Scott's at some point because he's got my old TV, and I'll test it then. And now Chris was able to confirm that it also increases compatibility with Game Boy interface and some of the more weird modes that it does, all because of the off timing of the Game Boy versus modern TV timings and stuff. So that was a great little tidbit. Thank you for sharing. And who knows? I mean, if the MCable actually works for compatibility, I might do a very quick follow-up video. I'm still not sure I really like the filter that it puts on it, but if that's something that you would use anyway, if that's something that you think would be cool to use with the Switch, and you're having compatibility problems with the OSSC, seems like kind of a great thing to use. So thanks for letting us know. Zachary Van Luling had a couple of questions. I might have to break up this answer and do a couple of parts in case I screw up, and this way I won't have to go all the way back to the beginning. But first, he's moving to New York City from New England in about a month, and is just about to start packing up his large hardware and CRT collection into a climate-controlled storage unit while I'm in the city. Do you have any general advice for mid to long-term storage of this stuff? So the only thing CRT related is don't store your CRTs tube down. There's a bunch of reasons for that. There's also the wire, which name I always forget, but you'll see a lot of RGB monitors where if you have an all-white screen, the top third and the bottom third will have a thin line across it, and that's basically one of the wires that keeps everything together in the front of the tube, and sometimes those fall forward. So I was told to just don't put them tube down to help prevent that, and of course you could scratch the glass and all that stuff. But other than that, the only other thing that I would suggest is not related directly to CRTs, but all electronic components and capacitors especially. So first of all, obviously keep it off the floor. Put it on a pallet or two. I love those rolling racks I always talk about. I keep all my monitors on those. So that might even actually be a great thing for you to buy if you're moving anyway, because you could buy a couple of those, put them on, put some plastic over it, and then, wheel that right in so you don't have to carry it. And if you already said climate controlled, so as long as it's off the floor, just in case anything happens, any liquid gets spilled, and you don't want it super humid or anything, or any real extreme temperature, just because that could cause the caps to wear out even faster. But other than that, that's pretty much it. Don't put it face down, and treat it the way you would every other safe electronics device. And for the second question, I had to stop recording and go research it for you because I just wanted to double check. But he found something called a Net TV 34XF3, which is a 34-inch tube TV that accepts NTSC, PAL, and CCAM, and it has RGB HV, VGA, component, composite, and S-video inputs, with a max VSync rate of 120 hertz. So that's great. I've never heard of the Net TV. I've looked up pictures of it. It's the only thing I could find. I couldn't find spec sheets. But it seems to be like one of those video conference room monitors that were made where it was essentially a consumer grade tube, a high-end one, that they stuck different electronics in to make it compatible with everything. Because projector technology was expensive and heavy for CRT projectors, so it was very often cost-effective to buy a $2,000 or $3,000 giant ass TV with all these inputs, so people could come in and hook up their computer and all that. So, you asked, is this the holy grail of consumer grade TVs? It might be, but I would just check to see if 240p is treated as 480i or 240p. So you said it works with the HD Retrovision cables. Try to do things like the 240p test suite. And look for blurring. There's a few different things you could do that you could test how it's being processed. And it's kind of hard to describe, but once you see it in person, you'll be able to know instantly. Especially if you have other CRTs, you'll know right away if it's being processed as interlaced or progressive. So that's the only pause that I have, because a lot of HD CRTs will process the signal wrong, and in fact will process everything as interlaced. Not the professional production monitors, the consumer grade HD CRTs. So I would just double check that. But yeah, you might have found a great one, and especially if it's got low tube hours on it. That alone is pretty awesome. So definitely let me know what you find, because I'm pretty interested in that. Retrotech and Doomleg had a comment about the PS1 video. I'll get back to that at the end. But Doomleg's other question was, on one of the recent retro roundtables, you guys discussed the GameCube HD Mark II. You mentioned the problem of getting clean audio over HDMI. He's glad we mentioned it because he thought there was something wrong with his GameCube, and there isn't any information about the issue, at least when he researched it. Other than using SCART RGB or the aux output, is there a fix that you know of to get clean audio over HDMI? Or is it just because of lack of HDMI certification? Well, I'm sure you didn't mean it this way, but I definitely just want to clarify that, HDMI certification doesn't necessarily mean shit. You could build a perfectly flawless product and not get the certification, but if it was certified, it would have to have been forced to pass the audio through, but it would have been a more expensive product. It might not have even been made because you'd have to add audio converters. So what I would suggest is to get something like an HDMI splitter that has audio out, or even an HDMI audio extractor, but the splitters are the same price, and you might not, you might use that one day, because you could end up doing something like plugging the HDMI cable into the splitter and getting optical audio output from that, and then use that for your stereo or your HD TV or something. I don't know of many TVs, if any, that would have separate optical audio inputs, but stereos certainly do. So at least that might take care of it for you. Or of course, if you're capturing, that's another way to go about it. And I've also seen switches sometimes increase compatibility. It doesn't happen often, and I wouldn't count on it, but that might be just a neat little bonus where you plug in this cable into an HDMI splitter or switch, and then suddenly it's working with your TV. So the other thing, just make sure when you go into the settings in your the Mark II that DVI mode is off, because DVI mode turned on treats it as if it's only a DVI cable and disables audio. So, I mean, those are pretty much the best tips I can give. And other than that, I mean, just use the standard multi-out with left and right audio like you probably have. So, sorry I don't have a better answer, but that might actually be your fix. Dan Diego said, in regards to the recently discovered Wii 480p video bug, he'd be interested in seeing a comparison of an early model Wii running patched homebrew versus unpatched. I wonder if the patch will make much of a difference on a late model Wii, since they already have pretty good video quality over component. Any plans to check this out? So I have a hard time capturing Wii. It always is a giant pain, and people like Extremes and Dark Aries are always willing to help. It's when I do go back to tackling Wii capture, I'm going to throw myself into a huge project and make sure I get it right and get it perfect, because I was very disappointed in how my Wii HDMI video came out from the comparisons perspective. I think the video came out great and the conclusions were all spot on, but the comparison shots I put up for a bunch of different reasons, including my capture ability, all get screwed up. So I will eventually get back to that, but I want to make sure I get it perfect this time to kind of make up for that. And I would love to do a video that shows different models of Wii's output, as well as things like what different mods do, what the VGA mod does, and what this mod does. And I was even kind of sort of talking to My Life in Gaming about doing that with them, and that kind of fell off just because they're so busy and I'm so busy, and that's just, it's a big undertaking to make sure to get that right. And on top of that, we would have to make sure to upload that video to many different services, because YouTube's going to ruin that compression anyway. It would have to be on Library or something that doesn't compress and just leaves the file up there for you. That way you could test everything out on a local computer as well as stream it if you wanted to. But to answer your question, will it make much of a difference on a late model Wii? I don't know. I don't think so. I think the bigger difference would be on an early model Wii, and whether you see that difference is completely up to your eyes. And I know that's kind of a cop-out response, but that is the truth. And especially with doing comparison shots, for whatever reason, I could look at an RGB monitor or a flat screen and just instantly know what's wrong with the picture on 16-bit stuff. Maybe it's just because I love it and I've been staring at it my whole life, but for certain things, I have to really concentrate to figure out the difference. And there's some obvious ones out there, like if you use cheap $5 component cables on the Wii versus really good ones, yeah, I mean, you can notice that immediately. But if you have a great set of cables on a well-tuned monitor or flat screen or something, it's kind of hard for me to tell the difference in the 480p bugs on the Wii. So that's one of those things where if myself or My Life in Gaming ever gets around to doing a really great comparison video, that would probably be the best way to understand the issue and to see the differences. But I don't know if I'd be able to pull that off soon. And like I said, I mean, some people will look at that and go, I don't see the difference. Just like some people look at my Super Nintendo, one chip versus mini, bypass versus unbypass shots and go, they're all the same, what are you doing? So it's all really up to your eyes. But great questions, and one of these days I'll make up for my crappy Wii captures and do a better job of it. Firebrand X had a question about the recent Gradius 3 patch that Vitor released that offloads some of the processing power onto the SA1 chip to reduce slowdown and to overall just improve the performance of the game on real hardware. Voltar had made one on a real hardware cartridge using an adapter board that the real Phoenix made, proven that the patch actually works on a real SA1 game. And Firebrand X was wondering, he had heard that the emulation of the chip on the SD to SNES was less than perfect. Would he be able to tell the difference on his SD to SNES Pro versus real hardware? And my guess, after looking into this, after asking some questions, because I had a few other questions related to this, my guess is no, absolutely not. Because it's a patch that changes the original game. So even if you were a speedrunner or an expert at Gradius 3 on the SNES, once it's been offloaded to the SA1 chip, everything's going to change. The game's going to play better. All of the quirks that you knew of aren't going to be the same. They're probably going to be gone, or the game overall should have been improved. So because of that, even if you had a cartridge and the SD to SNES Pro next to each other, I don't think you'd be able to notice a difference at all. But for things like official games with an SA1 chip in it. If people are describing the emulation as less than perfect and you're a master of that game, maybe you would see a tweak or two, but it might be a glitch here or there. It might be, like when I was first testing the Super FX implementation, I'd occasionally get like a weird diagonal line across the screen that would go away after a few seconds and didn't affect gameplay. I would imagine if there was anything like that, that's what you'd see. But overall, I've heard nothing but good things about the SD to SNES's implementation of it. So if you were really looking to play that game and you wanted to wait for it to make sure you had the best experience, my gut tells me just use the SD to SNES Pro and you're going to love it. And if there is any difference, because it's a patch and because it's updated, you're probably not going to be able to tell the difference or even care. Okay, on to RetroTech and Doomleg's comments about the RetroBrite video. I'll give the whole backstory about what happened and explain why it wasn't in the weekly roundup. But I do want to warn people, if you don't care about this, this is the last of the Q&A for this week, so you could just turn it off if you just don't even want to be bothered. I totally understand, and that's why I wanted to wait for it for last. That way I didn't make anybody sit through a rant about something that they don't care about. I think it's a mildly alright story, but whatever, it's just my opinion. So let me jump into it. I wanted to get into retrobriting and I wanted to start doing some tests, but I was kind of like laughing at the fact that pretty much every YouTuber out there that has ever talked about anything retro has done a retrobrite video that sucked. There's a couple of great ones out there, and in fact one of the really good ones I put as the first clip in my video, kind of as like a nod to that, as like a, you know, just to let everybody know that I kind of knew what I was doing. Here's some other good videos, and I referenced some bad videos in the beginning too, of course, but yeah, I kind of wanted to do a tongue-in-cheek, light-hearted video on it and show everybody debunking why all of these problems happen and why you get the spotty outlook. Because so many of those videos I'd seen are people that go, look how good it looks, it's not yellow anymore, but it looks like crap, it's all spotty and uneven. So I thought a good way to do this, or a fun way to do this, would just be to make something silly, because I spend a lot of time and effort doing serious videos. I gotta have some fun now and then. So I took a PS1 that was a parts machine. It was one of those ones that, like, you leave in a bin, you know, you have a PS1 come in with a power supply issue, swap it with that one. You know, a CD-ROM assembly, swap it. So other than the power, eject, and reset buttons, the thing was pretty much useless. And I figured that was the perfect unit to test this on, because PS1s are cheap, there's zillions of them still, so great. Did the video, and you know, I did a good job showing and demonstrating everything. At least I think I did an alright job, but you know, the questions I had before I had done the research and before I understood what the process was like was always, is it an uneven application of the goop that you're using the cause of the spotting? Or is it that the plastic is sticking to, the plastic wrap or plastic bag is sticking to the console? And I thought I did a good job showing that I was constantly moving it around and everything. And no, it's just a combination of the heat, the UV rays, and it's really one of those things where you're not going to get consistent results using the sun, and it's kind of a dangerous method. So what I was planning on doing was part 2 was going to be showing that and doing stuff like, well, if you have to use the sun, let's just take other pieces of plastic and put them out. You know, maybe let's do 2 hours at a time and then come back in and wash them off and, you know, leave them sit. And then what about a UV box, or what about hydrogen peroxide? I was going to do, you know, like imagine a couple of pieces of yellowed plastic all in a different solution and test it that way. And then part 3 was going to be get in touch with people that do these types of things for a living, plastic chemical analysis and stuff like that. I think I still have at least one of my old contacts from when we used to manufacture computers and had our own plastic molds and everything. And because there are still some questions that in my opinion, are unanswered. Like, why exactly does the plastic break down? Why do you get a weird texture, even on the spots that weren't all bloomed out and burnt looking? You know, what is the safest way to do it, and is there even a safe way to do it? A lot of people report it getting brittle and falling apart after a while. A lot of people say it gets yellow real quick again. So I really wanted to dig into it. But then I made the mistake of reading the comments in that video. and it seemed like the majority of comments were for people that never watched it. And I don't mean like let it play in the background and didn't quite pay attention. I mean it was obvious that so many of those comments were from people that never hit play on the video. They just looked at the picture and made some assumptions. And it really pissed me off. And look, I'm only human. I know there's better ways to handle this. I know you're not supposed to feed the trolls. You're not supposed to let this stuff bother you. But I just saw that and got really pissed and went, why the hell did I make the video if people are just going to make nasty comments without ever watching it? So I said, forget it. If this is what I'm going to get for doing a Retro Bright video, I'm not going to follow it up. And I'm going to smash the shit out of the console instead in slow motion with a high-speed camera. So, it probably wasn't the best way to handle it. Felt great, and it was a lot of fun, I got to admit. And it was also fun to launch that video with comments disabled, to take the power away from those people who get their genuine enjoyment by harassing others online. It was kind of fun to do that. It felt good. It was probably one of my favorite videos that I've ever made, because I had a bunch of my friends there and everything. And one friend that you might have recognized after seeing one draft decided they wanted to be in the video. That was wonderful. That made me feel pretty good as well. So I talked about this almost the same as I'm explaining it now on the weekly roundup. And when I went back and watched it, it just sounded like I was bitching and whining. It didn't sound like a good explanation. And in fact, it almost sounded like I was unappreciative of the views or stuff. And that's not at all what it's like. I do completely understand that if just a small percentage of people that watch the video comment on it, or even bother hitting like or dislike. I never do. I watch all my stuff on my TV, so there's no easy way to comment or hit like or dislike. And I think the majority of people that watched the video probably understood what I was trying to do. And even if they didn't quite get that it was tongue-in-cheek, I guess if English isn't your first language, you might not have gotten some of the jokes or something. They at least understood, like, I'm demonstrating, the wrong way to do it, and probably assumed I was going to come back with a follow-up. So I get it. I get that I acted like a whiny baby, but man, I just need that sometimes. And I got to be honest, there's going to be one more of those like that in the future. Not smashing retro consoles. That's not what I'm about, obviously, but there is going to be one more, a little over-the-top thing coming up at some point this summer that I've been planning for a long time, which hopefully you'll either find funny or not find funny but not care. Some people were genuinely offended, and I think it's that outrage culture trend. I think a few people just found something that they got to be outraged about that morning and were excited that they had something to tweet about. I don't know, but I just felt like even though I just wanted to ignore it and make it go away and didn't talk about it in the roundup, I certainly felt that I owed it to all of you, the people that keep this channel going, to explain what happened and to assure you that no, this is not going to turn into a Smash channel. And if you do want to see more of that, let me know. I'll do that for fun on the side, and I love slow motion work. Anybody that I don't really post on Instagram, but I've done a few things about slow motion lightning and stuff like that. So I would like to do that for fun, but I just wanted to assure everybody, no, this is not a Smash channel. I'm not going to start screaming into the microphone and having wacky GIFs and stuff like that, or thumbnails. I mean, I'm still me. I just had to vent a bit of frustration, and I felt like those of you who got the joke might have enjoyed it with me, or not cared, which is totally cool. So hopefully I didn't lose too many supporters who got offended by me smashing that. And if it makes you feel any better, if you were annoyed by it, zoom in on one of the parts, because you actually see a piece of plastic hit me right in the forehead. So always close your eyes when you're smashing stuff. But yeah, that's my long and boring explanation of what happened and why there's not going to be a follow-up and why I didn't talk about it. So, any opinions you have on it, obviously feel free to post. And even if you're upset at me for doing it, just let me know why, and don't just barrage me with a full assault of swears or something. And obviously I could learn from this, but no Retro Bright videos in my short-term future, at least, and no other Smash videos other than something that's coming later this summer that I hope you'll all enjoy. All right, well, thank you if you're still with me after that long and probably boring rant about that Retro Bright thing, but just wanted to, as always, thank everybody for your support, because I really appreciate so much how I'm able to keep this channel going, keep all the behind-the-scenes research going. If you saw some of my tweets earlier today, you might get a hint on one of the other things I've been working on. So it makes me feel very grateful and very lucky that I get to do something I love and get to kind of help out the retro gaming community all at the same time. So you're the reason that happens. Thank you very much for doing so. And anybody who's new to the Q&As or kind of new to any of the support platform, any question that you have at all, please just ask it wherever your support platform is on the latest Q&A video. So even if you're watching an old video or something, find the newest video and ask the question there, because the way things are set up, I can't really go back and filter through older videos. Once these are shot, it's kind of the last time I look at that page. And if for whatever reason I don't get to your question, please re-ask it, because I either missed it by accident or it came in after I was shooting the video. So as always, and once again, thank you so much for all of your support, and I'll see you next time.